All righty, let's talk baseball. It's the deeper dive. Dave Lochran, Adam Shaw, 14 games and a shit ton of pitching, Adam. This is a ridiculous slate from a pitching standpoint, so we're getting an early start here to make sure we can get in all of the information, in a reasonable amount of time. Just some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Rich Hill was originally expected to start for the Dodgers, and now we've got ourselves Ross Stripling, who you could actually argue is a better option here. And then basically, Adam, outside of that, you have going down the list: DeGrom, Cole, Marquez, not counting Sale on a pitch count, not counting Trevor Bauer on a pitch count. Thank God, because this would be even more difficult. Zach Greinke, Castillo, the list goes on. There's Reid, Foley, Stripling. What's that?
Bieber.
Yeah, I'll pass. But your point is taken. A lot of pitching on this slate. And you know what makes everything worse, Adam? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you right now. What makes everything worse is the fact that the best game on the slate from a hitting standpoint has 90% chance of thunderstorms from 7 p.m. to Blythe.
Yep. It's a pretty ugly one.
Good input. Okay, let's keep moving on here. We'll go game by game. Hopefully everyone is able to tune in now. I know it's an early start, so you can always go back and watch it from the beginning once we're done. Let's kick it off with the first game on the slate: New York Mets and the Washington Nationals. Jacob deGrom and Joe Ross. Just flat out dominance from deGrom this year, Adam. You're talking about a guy that's allowed 3 or fewer runs in 29 of 30 starts, 2 or fewer runs in 24 of 30, with double-digit strikeouts 10 times, league-leading WAR, just everything. 4th highest swinging strike rate, 30-plus K rate against hitters from both sides of the plate. I mean, it's not the easiest matchup at all, but I think we'd both agree that just matchup agnostic, Jacob deGrom has probably been the most consistent pitcher on the entire year among every single pitcher.
Yeah, he's the best pitcher on the slate here. Obviously, the matchup sucks, and there's a lot of good pitching, so it's far from a must-play option, but still a really good play if you can find the money for him. I mean, he's just been absolutely phenomenal. His team obviously sucks, but doesn't give up runs, strikes out a bunch of guys. You have Victor Robles at the top of the Washington order, who, while he is a top prospect, he's still young. Like, he's, I think, kind of an upgrade for deGrom. The bottom of this order is pretty ugly with Wilmer Difo and Spencer Kieboom. So I'm not prioritizing deGrom simply because of how many options there are. I can't honestly say that I'm prioritizing really any pitchers. I'm just spreading out my ownership a lot. But it's obviously a really good spot. I'm not interested in the Nats bats. Trey Turner, his price tag at $4,200 is sort of appealing in tournaments just because he's such a high upside guy, but shortstop's
very appealing.
Yeah, shortstop's just relatively deep today, so I still don't know how much of him I'll actually end up with.
Yeah, it could be a whole lot less deep if Globe Life doesn't play. You take Profar, Segura, Andrews off the slate. That makes a difference, in my opinion, like a significant difference. So
yeah, that's true. I guess, and I just look back down. Like, I have a lot of names on my list, but when I was making the list, they're all kind of just like, he's okay, I guess.
Right, so, but no one you're in love with, yeah.
Right. Yeah, like Trey Turner has a higher ceiling than guys in that price range like Gurriel and Rosario.
Yeah. For what it's worth, deGrom's only allowed I say only, but 14 stolen bases. But if deGrom allowed more guys on base, he would definitely he would have one of the worst stolen base rates in the league. Like, I feel pretty confident about that. I really do. He has caught 8 stealing though, whatever battery he's been with. But if they get on, if I look at it this way, Adam, if Turner gets on, he's absolutely going to run. He against deGrom for his career, his 23 plate appearances, he has stolen 5 bases. And that's with him getting on base 8 times. So it's simple enough. There's a good chance deGrom goes 0 for 4. or Turner goes overboard. But if he gets on base, there's also a very good chance he swipes second and then third in the same shot.
Right. Yeah, and playing shortstop is valuable. Like Bryce Harper and Soto are cheap too, but there's 100 different outfielders.
Yes, exactly. I like the speed here in Turner. That's pretty much it. And then with DeGrom, I think the appeal is just that with so many appealing pitchers on this slate, you're going to see the lowest DeGrom ownership, and my guess would be in months.
Yeah, most likely. Um, I don't think we're going to see really any pitchers ownership get too carried away on the slate. At least I don't think that we should.
I think
So
Stripling might be.
okay, yeah. So outside of him, probably. I was thinking like the top tier guys. I forgot Stripling
No,
was
I
even a pitcher.
agree with you. Outside of that, though, from the Coles to the Greinke's, Castillo, I'll throw John Gant into the mix. I mentioned Reid Foley. There are and Herman Marquez, but he's not going to have much ownership. No, maybe just you and me. But yeah, it's a really, 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 really deep pitching slate. So, yeah, that is what we're dealing with. Anything else from this game? Because the Mets bats, I actually wrote a few of them up in the deep dive today. They're not generally appealing from a talent standpoint, but like Conforts or Nimmo is mashing righties this season. Jay Bruce batting cleanup is super cheap. Jeff McNeil batting second. Joe Ross has struggled against lefties, but I will say one thing. I'm sure you noticed this as well. Maybe you haven't, and I can enlighten you. Joe Ross, in his first start of the season, he had the Tommy John. He's only made one start this year. One thing that I noticed from this season compared to other seasons is that because we know that he's had some serious struggles against lefties in the past several years. Um, in the past, he was throwing his slider 27% of the time from 2015 through 2017 to lefties, and only the changeup like 11 to 15%. Well, in his first start back, it's a very small sample size, but still applicable. 35% changeup to lefties and only 9% slider. So depending on how good the changeup is, if it is good, that might mean that this guy could be a lot less homer prone and a lot less disastrous when facing left-handed hitters if he does that going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I'm pulling up his Brooks page now to try and see how the changeup looked in that start as far as movement goes. But yeah, like Jay Bruce, I think is way too cheap at 3,600. I think he's a top value play. But then it just kind of becomes secondary options because Conforto's expensive, Brandon Nimmo's expensive, Dominic Smith's mediocre, and that's putting it nicely. So Jay Bruce is the one guy that like really really stands out to me.
Me too. Me too. I think so. From a pricing standpoint, it's kind of tough, but for me, Nimmo is a strong play here too. Like this guy has had a roller coaster ride of a season where he's just been red hot and then completely invisible. But he's very very good with the platoon advantage. So I think Nimmo is expensive, but should see relatively. I wouldn't think that he's a very popular play. I'm curious. Do you think the Met stack is going to be popular? Because a lot of them are affordable and they're actually a pretty easy team to stack. And you've got what, 5 lefties from the 2 through 6 spot, which is kind of appealing if you were looking to stack this team.
I doubt it will be that popular just because it's the Mets and everyone knows they suck. And it's a 14 game slate, so I doubt it'll be that popular.
All right. Sounds good. I
Like
don't mind them though.
if people are going like cheap, they'll probably go to like Kansas City, Detroit.
Right. I don't mind them, but again, it is worth noting that if Ross continues to throw the changeup at that high clip against lefties, he may see some improvements from previous seasons.
Yeah, and just looking at the movement on it, it seems like it's probably pretty decent. It's not like it doesn't jump off the page or anything, but it's probably a pretty decent pitch.
Yeah, he got
It,
21, 20.
it is better than last season. He does have more arm side run on it than he did last year.
All right. And just in terms of results, um, and that gave me a 13% whiff rate on it. So not terrible. That's against lefties, but
Right.
yeah, not terrible. And decreasing the slider usage is probably going to work in his favor. Adam, CC Sabathia and Jeffrey Ramirez. Interesting game to break down here. I'm going to let you do all of that and more right after I read these odds. Yankees at 5.8 against Ramirez, who really hasn't been terrible. He actually isn't that bad of a pitcher, but the highest implied run total on the slate goes to the Yankees here. And on the other side, against CC Sabathia, the Orioles sit at 3.3. I guess for me, it's just very tough to prioritize Sabathia when there's so many other similarly priced options with a much higher ceiling. Curious to know where you stand on this one.
Yeah, I was planning on being pretty high on Sabathia today before the Stripling news. I still like Sabathia now, but it's just pretty hard to prioritize him over Stripling. He has, been better in terms of his strikeout stuff. It is a good matchup against this Orioles team, but I just think Stripling, has better strikeout stuff. I think obviously there's a ton of pitching on this slate, so not sure how much Sabathia I'll actually end up with, but I wouldn't talk anyone off of him because I do think it's a good spot. VR and Adam Jones really the only two guys on Baltimore that I have any interest in at all, and neither one's a priority. And then for Jeffrey Ramirez, I actually think this is one of the worst Yankees lineups for him, even though it's missing Stanton and Duhar and Gary Sanchez, because just the way he pitches, he's a high slider usage guy to righties. We know that Stanton gives him a ton of upside there and just isn't particularly good in that matchup. Miguel Andujar has struggled um, with Ramirez's pitch types as well a bit, and then Sanchez we know will at least strike out. All three of those guys out of the lineup, I think it kind of just makes it tougher. Aaron Judge actually matches up pretty well with him. You have Hicks higher in the order. You have Didi batting fifth, Neil Walker batting sixth. I think it's a good value play. This is a lineup that I think actually could really give Ramirez more trouble than the projected lineup that was out earlier in the day. So, I'm sure everyone likes the Yankees, but so do I, and especially the lefties plus Aaron Judge.
Yeah, I'm with you here. This team is finally back to full health, but there's no Stanton and there's no Sanchez. You're saying that you actually think this lineup is more favorable against Ramirez than
Yeah,
having Stanton.
I think it's a more difficult. I'm less interested in playing Ramirez now than I was before the lineup came out.
Okay. Yeah, interesting point. I also, by the way, Neil Walker, since everyone returned, was batting eighth. He's now batting sixth. I think this is a really good value spot for Walker. The best lefty power park in the game is Yankee Stadium. He's got the platoon advantage no matter who he faces, but he's better from the left side, batting sixth here. It's a really nice spot for him.
Yeah, I
And I
think he's a
think
top second base play.
yeah, agreed. Absolutely agree. I do wish we had some Andujar in this lineup, but what can you do? It's you have no Stanton. The everyday guys that are out: Stanton, Gary Sanchez, and Andujar. Am I missing anyone?
No.
Yeah, that's it. And Gleyber Torres moved up to the 7 hole, so there you have it. Brett Gardner batting ninth against the righty too, so I like him as well. Let's get your input on CC because I wrote like a quick write up on him in the deep dive, but basically all I said is that I expect him to have, some ownership against this team. And I think the way I see it right now, he's projected on Awesemo.com for 14%, which is relatively high given the amount of options we have. But I just, with Stripling and a few other guys, there's one that we'll get to a couple games from now that I've noticed some significant changes from him. I'm going to chase higher ceilings elsewhere. Tell me why you agree or disagree.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree. I was going to be interested in Sabathia because of the matchup and because he has shown, increased upside lately, but he wasn't throwing his cutter as much in the last couple of starts. And that was a reason that we saw the increased strikeouts from him against righties. And then also the addition of Ross Stripling here. I expect, Stripling to probably throw around 80, 85 pitches. So it's not like he is likely to go very deep into the game, but he's just such a good pitcher and it's such a good matchup for him that it's really hard for me to play Sabathia over him, even at lower ownership.
Yeah, me too. Don't really have any interest in Baltimore bats. I think CC's fine, but I'm going to be looking elsewhere. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. Ulyss Chassin and Ivan Nova. Last time I looked, this was the only other game that had some potential weather concerns. I'll pull it right back up now. PNC Park looks to be clear until around the 9 o'clock hour, which we got around 90% chance of storms here, 82-degree temperatures at first pitch. Not a game I have a ton of interest in here, maybe some Milwaukee lefties, but let's see where you stand.
I have nothing from this game. I think
Nothing. All right.
Ulyss Chassin's a pretty decent pitcher that I don't like taking guys against. And Milwaukee going against Nova, who is markedly better at home. He benefits from pitching in PNC. But Christian Yelich, 5,800, is a guy who I think is pretty ballpark dependent. I mean, just look at the difference in his numbers between, when he all those years in Miami and then what he's done in Miller Park. And this isn't a great park for left-handed power. So I don't really want to pay a premium on Yelich. There's just nothing from this game that I'm interested in.
Fair enough. We can move on then. I'm with you for the most part. I'm never against like a Travis Shaw against the guy that does have some problems against lefties, or a Yelich or so, but I don't see any of them being priorities or even secondary. All tertiary guys that I don't have a ton of interest in. Maybe if Globe Life doesn't play, I'll circle back and have some interest here if we get news on that. But until then, pretty much off the board.
Yeah, I mean,
Toronto and Tampa. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I'll leave Yelich and Shaw in my player pool. I just don't expect to end up with
Right.
much of either.
Right. Yeah, especially at Yelich's price. You're right. Sean Reid Foley, and then you have Diego Castillo starting off this bullpen game. I direct messaged you earlier today when I was doing some research for the article. Man, I came across some interesting stuff with. He was recalled from AAA 3 starts back. His first start since being recalled was on the 2nd of September. And since being recalled, he increased his slider usage to over 30%. Um, and he's using it heavily against lefties and righties. He's got solid whiff rate on the pitch. He's using it a lot, allowed no power on it in those 3 starts. But what was really interesting is that Reid Foley in these 3 starts has a 31% whiff per swing rate on his 4-seamer. Now, if you're someone that doesn't dig super deep into the stats, just to give you an example, you have a guy like Jacob deGrom, who leads all starters with a 32% whiff per swing rate on his fastball this year. 4-seamer. Chris Sale's at 31%. Walker Buehler's is also at an elite clip rate at 30.5. Max Scherzer at 30.4. All of those guys get the most swings and misses on their 4-seamer. Those are elite numbers in terms of whiffs per swing. Reid Foley at 31%, albeit a small sample size, since coming back up, has flashed legitimate upside with this, mid 90s, 94, 95 mile per hour fastball slider combination. And we've seen him rack up double-digit strikeouts in 2 of his last 3 starts, Adam. I am not opposed to looking at Sean Reid Foley at this price point, and I don't think that many people have caught on to the adjustments that he's made.
Yeah, it's not a spot that I'm super confident in, but I do think there's upside for him at this price tag. His minor league numbers are, decent. He's shown upside since coming to the majors, and like you said, throwing the slider more, and it is a pitch that's been effective against lefties. Obviously, a small sample size, but he's thrown 50 sliders to lefties, has a 14% swinging strike percentage this year, 207 expected WOBA, like no power allowed at all. So, I mean, yeah, it could go poorly, but it's not like he's priced to his ceiling. So I have no issue getting some Reid Foley in as an SP2.
And I agree. It's certainly a risk, right? Like it's definitely a risk. But I feel like there's definitive upside here. We've seen it. He has 31 or more DraftKings points in 2 of 3 starts since returning, and it's got everything to do with this 4-seam slider combination. Racked up 10 strikeouts across 5 scoreless against the Yankees, 10 strikeouts across 7 1-run innings against Miami. Got lit up by Cleveland. I don't mind writing that one off. Tampa Bay can be a pesky team, but they can also look awful as well. So to me, Reid Foley is a guy that obviously not targeting him in cash, but I love the ceiling that he's presented at this price point lately. And I believe that there are legitimate reasons for the upside, for the adjustments that he's made. And it's not just an illusion. So when I see stuff like that, it definitely adds to the appeal instead of saying, well, this K rate is up, but I don't know why. We do know why. And I like that.
Yep.
Adam, anything else here on this game? You have another bullpen game for Tampa Bay.
Not much here. I don't mind Randall Grichuk because he should be facing Jalen Beeks once Castillo gets out. Same goes for Teoscar Hernandez, but outfield's just so deep that I can't prioritize either one. From Tampa Bay, I don't really have anything.
Yeah, not hard or not really necessary at all. I stand with you there. For me, it's pretty much Reid Foley, and that's about it. Not really looking to pick on this Tampa Bay bullpen game, uh, as we generally don't. How about Cleveland and Boston, Adam? You have two of the best pitchers in baseball, whom both will be limited. Chris Sale, they're hoping that he can throw around 65 pitches. He threw 42 pitches in his last start, 26 prior to that. So they're building up at around 20 per game clip. And then Trevor Bauer hasn't pitched in almost a month and a half. He's returning. He's expected to throw a couple innings and then give way to Shane Bieber, who you mentioned at the top of the show. Sounded like you might have some interest in Bieber, so I'm all ears, fella.
I mean, I have some interest just because Boston's running out their celebratory lineup that has really bad players in it. But I still don't think I'll end up with much of him simply because of how many other options there are on the
And he's
slate.
9,200.
Right. Yeah. It makes it really tough. So I think I actually have more interest. Rafael Devers batting third. It's obviously a really bad spot for him against Bauer, but Shane Bieber struggled with left-handers all season long, giving up a ton of power. It's a better park for left-handed power than Fenway is. Devers is only $3,400. He's going to have, I would assume, like zero ownership here because of the fact that people just, see him against Bauer and it's a 3.2 implied run total. But I actually think he's a pretty high upside value option at what really isn't that strong of a third base position.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it. I could see it. I mean, Bauer or who are you said Ramirez? Or who are you talking about?
Devers.
Okay, I thought you said Ramirez, but yeah, Bieber struggling against lefties, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and they're only expecting really what? I'm assuming 2 innings maybe from Bauer.
It's what it sounds like. Doesn't sound like they're expecting much. Like I assume he faces Devers once, and then after that, Devers faces Bieber.
Yeah, batting third. Yeah, I like it. Outside of that, I don't really have anything from this game. Uh,
Nope.
do Yeah, so and even with Chris Sale, like there's a good chance the guy goes 65 innings and still or 65 pitches, still throws like 5 or more innings. So
Right.
you're
I
not
tried
really
to be
looking
interested in the Indians because of their prices and because Boston, I
right.
assume, is going to not have their best relievers today either. But if Chris Sale's going to, so I mean, I guess Cleveland is a high upside tournament stack because if Sale only goes 3 or 4 innings, there's a pretty good chance they get kind of the bad part of the Red Sox bullpen. But still, it's just so tough to prioritize because Sale could pretty easily go 5 or 6 in 65 pitches.
Right. But no, I think at least you're right in pointing out that, Lindor is what, $1,000 cheaper than he was just a couple days ago. Most of their prices have dropped pretty precipitously because of this matchup. Brantley at 3,900 on DraftKings. Encarnacion is what, 39?
Yeah.
They're cheap. Like they're definitely cheap. So I think it's a good point. But if you do so, you know that you're just taking a huge risk on an upside team with a lot of talent in a very tough matchup. That's really all it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Kansas City and Detroit, Adam, Ian Kennedy and Francisco Liriano. Let's get the breakdown.
So I like the spot for the same guys on Kansas City that we always like, Merrifield and Mondesi at the top. Both hit well against lefties. Both have a ton of speed. Liriano, not great at holding runners. So I like both of them a lot. I think that Hunter Dozier has plenty of upside for a $3,100 price tag, multi-position eligible on DraftKings, hitting fifth. Sal Perez, 3,800. It's a nice price tag. Bonifacio's free. Like this is the cheap stack I think you go to here against the pitcher in Liriano who will walk everyone at times and a bad Detroit bullpen. I think there's a lot of upside here in Kansas City as a full stack, or I like going to them, as mini stacks or one-offs. That being said, I do think Liriano has upside at 6K as well. I don't think you're going to need to play a lot of him to be a little bit overweight. And we have seen him be a little bit better lately at throwing strikes and not walking guys. I think that there's at least upside, but it's not something I'm going to have much of.
This is my problem. And you just mentioned it. Is like, so Liriano at his price, I would rather go with Reid Foley or John Gant at a similar price point, and maybe even potentially Chen, who's pitching.
I was thinking Joe Ross too.
Even a Joe Ross. Like, there's so many different ways to play this that I could see Liriano being an option, and he's actually for the first time all season, seemingly strung together 3 solid performances in a row against the White Sox, Houston, and Cleveland. But I don't see myself going here. If I saw him in a winning lineup, it wouldn't surprise me per se.
Yeah.
But I just have so much interest in pitchers that are at the same price or a little higher or maybe even lower. So,
Yep. Pretty much where I'm at.
yeah, Merrifield's a really interesting option here, especially I'll say it again, if Globe Life gets rained out between Seattle and Texas, because obviously somebody like uh Rogner Odor would make for a really good play against the terrible Erasmo Ramirez. Robinson Cano, it's likely that he will see some lefty-lefty matchups against Ariel Jurado, but still, like, second base has options in that game that could easily not play. And Merrifield's stolen 37 bases. Liriano is by no means a great pitcher when it comes to limiting runners. So yeah, I think once again you could look at Merrifield. You mentioned Mondesi, and Dozier too. The only thing that sucks with Dozier, this dude has displayed zero power against lefties this year. Maybe it'll change today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't totally buy into that, to his power issues, but he has been really bad.
What do you make of Kristen Stewart? You had talked about his power upside when he was brought up, and he hadn't really shown much of it since being called up, and then goes deep twice yesterday against this Royals team, batting second again, still dirt cheap across the board. Where do you stand on Kristen Stewart here, batting second?
Absolutely love him here against Ian Kennedy. We know Kennedy struggles with home runs, and this guy's just got monster power. His price tag came down on DraftKings after yesterday from 3,900 to 3,700. Yep. I mean, yeah, he's just got big time power. He already projects, according to Steamer and Zips, to have an ISO between like 190 and 200. He's not even 25 years old yet. Had 23 home runs at AAA with a 216 ISO, not playing in the PCL. So you can kind of take those as more impressive than they would be otherwise. So yeah, I mean, I think he's just one of the higher upside outfield plays. He's right there with Jay Bruce. I actually prefer him to Bruce because I think the matchup has a little bit more upside.
Yeah, Bruce and Stewart are my 2 top values on this slate.
Yep.
It's just a very good spot. By the way, for what it's worth, winds blowing 18 miles per hour out to left center at Kauffman Stadium, so favors more righties, but still 18 miles per hour is worth noting. And yeah, Kristen Stewart, $2,500 on FanDuel as well. He's dirt cheap across the board, and he's got an abundance of power, batting second. So yes, very, very good value here. No question. You'll want to give him a look if you're looking for a cheaper bat. And even, I'm not extremely interested in stacking this Detroit team. Even though yesterday, of course, they went off for how many runs was it?
I think
What
they
did
had
they
like 11.
finish? 11 runs. Yeah, of course. But yeah, I don't know. No Candelario, Jacoby Jones leading off, Ronnie Rodriguez and McCann and Vmart in the middle of this lineup. Saltalamacchia is in the lineup. That's a trash lineup, man. Outside of Stewart and Castellanos, I don't see anybody I like.
Yeah, I mean, they're the only 2 good hitters on the team. I do think game stacks in this game make a lot of sense, though. I mean, 2 not good bullpens, the wind blowing out, one starter in Kennedy who gives up a ton of home runs, one starter in Liriano who is capable of giving up home runs and walks and everything in between. So I do think game stacks here are a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not playing Kennedy, obviously. They never would, but I wouldn't even be surprised if he has a good game here. This lineup is just dreadful. Like Pete Cosma, Dowell Lugo, Jared Saltalamacchia, James McCann, Ronnie Rodriguez, and Victor Martinez. That's the 4 through 9 spots here. Jacoby Jones leading off. Man, that's still a bad lineup. So also, catcher's a terrible position. So Salvador Perez just by default becomes one of the better options here, batting cleanup.
Yeah, he's one of the best options, and at the moment, I have all 3 catchers in this game in my player pool, just because of price on the Detroit guys.
Oh yeah. All right. Interesting. So Wait, there's 4 catchers though. There's
Oh, sorry,
Gallagher,
not Cam Gallagher. Sorry,
but you do have Saltalamacchia?
he's in the player pool. I don't know if I'll end up with him. He's 2,200.
Yeah, he is. Rightfully so, huh? Anyway, I forgot that he still existed. All right.
I had no idea he
Um,
was in an organization.
yeah. Oh no, of course not. But I mean, when you see that name, you're like, oh, okay. I remember writing him up back in the day, and you'd always have to spell check it because it was
Yeah.
not an easy one. The double C always got me. Miami and Cincinnati. Hey, Adam, Luis Castillo, a guy that all throughout the beginning of the season, we're like, no, he's fine. He's fine. This guy's really good. He's got nasty stuff. Why can't he just be fine? And and he wasn't, right? Like the numbers all looked fine. We knew he struggled against lefties, but he's struggling. He'd struggle. But against righties, he's just been fantastic. And he's facing what? I think only 5 righties today. Um, but the lefties, Rafael Ortega, Sierra, Dietrich, JT Riddle, it's hard to get away from Castillo, who over his last 10 starts has been absolutely brilliant, and gets a really solid matchup here against the Marlins team that ranks dead last in WOBA ISO and has the 10th highest K rate against right-handed pitching on the season.
Yeah, Castillo is one of the reasons that it's kind of tough for me to get all the way up to the top tier pitching on the slate because
For
I
sure.
think he's obviously not as good as those guys, but he does still have monster upside. He's pitching in Miami, which will help with the home run issue that we've seen from him this year and the lack of power. I mean, JT Riddle has been pretty good lately. Dietrich's decent, but Ortega doesn't have power. Sierra doesn't have power. Everyone else hits right-handed. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good spot. I think the price tag's a little bit more expensive than I would ideally like. He's priced more to his ceiling than to. I mean, it's a guy that still has downside, but there's no denying the talent. He's got really good stuff. It's a good park. It's a bad team. I like Castillo quite a bit here.
So do I. Love him actually. And I don't even think we and Chen is the craziest play if you're looking to get off the board a little bit. I mean, like his home and road splits are outrageous and it makes sense. He's a guy that gives up a good amount of fly balls, but his home road splits are just like out of this world. I mean, they're ridiculous. He has a 268 WOBA and an almost 24% K rate again or at home against against all hitters, sub 20% line drives. And it's really just like a leverage play, even though I'm not sure he's going to be that low owned. We're showing him at like 9%, which is higher than I expected. Um, but even if I weren't to play him, he's just been so good at home that I don't really have any interest in Reds bats though, either, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I can see getting to Chen here just because he does pitch better at home, even if you kind of discount the strikeouts because he's never been a high strikeout guy. It's just a park that plays to his strengths, being hard to hit home runs. So I'm not prioritizing him, but I think he's another pitcher that is perfectly fine. I do like Eugenio Suarez here, though. Third base isn't a really strong position. He's $4,500. I think that in a lot of my lineups, I'll end up paying down at third. But where I don't, I do like Suarez against fly ball lefty and Chen, who does have home run issues, even though they haven't really shown themselves at home.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think I said it the other day when we were on the deeper dive that basically anytime Suarez is facing a lefty, you at least have to consider him because he's that good against them.
Right.
All right. Anything else on this one?
No.
All right, Philly and Atlanta, Nick Pivetta, Julio Turan, SunTrust Park. Looking at the odds on this game or totals on this game, you have the Braves at 4.5 and the Phillies at 4.1. You doing anything here?
I like the left-handed power bats. I don't know how much I'll end up with just because two of them, Bohr and Freeman, play first base where it's tough to really get a ton of ownership on anyone. But I do like Freeman here against Pivetta. We know Pivetta struggles with left-handed power at times, and this is a park that will play it up. So I like Freeman a lot. I think Justin Bohr against Tehran's a pretty good play. Tehran, he's very capable. He's one of those guys who's very capable of going out there and putting together a really good start. but he has a pretty long track record now of struggling with lefties. So I'll take my chances on any left-handed power from Philly, whether it's Justin Bour. I think Cabrera is a good middle infield play. I think Santana's a good first base option as well. Obviously, on DraftKings, you cannot play him with Bour, but you can on Fantasy Draft, you can on FanDuel. So it's one-offs from this game for me for sure, but I do think that there's power upside.
Yep, top 10 lefty park in the league as well, SunTrust Park. So that's where I would look here. I'd also say that Freeman to me makes sense just because first base is not that deep either. Like there are some decent options here, but Joey Gallo, number 1, is batting 8th. Number 2, he's $5,000 on DraftKings. Number 3, he's only outfield eligible on FanDuel. And number 4, this game might not even play. So, I mean, first base is not it's not that deep, man. And you don't even have you don't even have uh Heaney in the lineup either. So
Yeah.
because he's which seems odd to me because they're projected to see most of their plate appearances against the lefty. So I'm okay throwing Freeman into the mix as well, just because I think it's really not that deep a position, Adam, unless like Jay Bruce and Hunter Dozier. It's more value here, I feel like, than anything else.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that some of the highest upside first basemen are from this game.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Santana and Bour, as you mentioned. All right, let's get to this Globe Life game. It is not looking great right now. And look, neither you or myself are meteorologists, and even meteorologists when it comes to baseball. I take what they say with a grain of salt because they always cover their ass. And, if you play this game, it might get rained out. If you don't play it, it might play. So just be sure to play it because it might play, but you might not want to play it either because it could get rained. It's like, all right, thanks, pal. I'll do my own work here. But anyway, just looking at what we've got, it looks a little bit troublesome, Adam, and it's easily the best overall hitting atmosphere when you consider park conditions and pitchers on this entire 14 game slate if it doesn't rain.
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty easy. Either do not play anyone from this game, as long as the weather stays how it is. Either do not play anyone or game stack it, because
for sure
it's obviously going to come at really, really low ownership. And it's 2 of the best hitting spots on the slate. Ramirez struggles with lefties. Whoever's pitching for Texas struggles with everyone. Whether I saw
Ariel Urado was expected to come in after.
Yeah, that's what I saw earlier. I got confused when he said something about a lefty. I thought maybe it was Mendez, but
my fault.
But yeah, so I mean, it's just a really good
Urado. My fault. Yeah, Urado's right-handed. That's my fault. I got mixed up there. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, just great hitting conditions if it does play, and it's going to have virtually no ownership because of the weather. So, from what it seems like, you're going to have to get pretty lucky for it to get in. So I wouldn't allocate any significant amount of or portion of your buy-ins to it. But you're not going to need to have a lot of exposure to this game to be overweight, assuming the forecast stays how it is. And if this game does somehow play, there's clearly tournament winning upside. So for the most part, I'll have nothing from this game, but I could see making a couple of game stacks.
I really don't want to fade this game. I really don't want to at all. By the way, I was thinking Yohander Mendez.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah, I thought maybe I'd missed news that it was going to be Mendez.
No, I just got them mixed up. They got so many gas cans that I messed it up. Messed it up.
Jeez. Struggling, man.
Jeez, man. Look at what this Rangers team is doing to me. But no, I think it wouldn't even matter who's on the mound for them. It's just a good spot. You have what, a 5.5 implied run total for Seattle, 5.1 for Texas, which I think is low. I love let's just assume there isn't any problem here. Let's just talk about it as if there's no weather, which there is. If you're just tuning in, it's a problem. But Shin-Soo Choo, Profar, Mazzaro, Odor, Chirinos, like Gallo's down there batting eighth, but still it's an outstanding spot. Even like a Willie Calhoun, you could stack the top, bottom, middle of this order and feel pretty good about it. But I agree with you. If you're gonna play it, just load up on the entire game. There's no way with the risks that you can just do one-offs and pick and choose a player from each team. So
Yeah, because like doing that, you're just basically going to either end up with a bunch of dead lineups because game rains out, or you're going to end up with a bunch of just really suboptimal lineups for a slate where this game's going because you're going to have like one hitter from a game where there's like 18 good hitting plays.
right, exactly, and essentially just killing your upside on any lineup that does have a chance because you have Odor in there who isn't playing. Yeah, I'm with you there. But overall, phenomenal game. We'll see what happens. We still got a while to go before lock. And then Chris and Jake are coming up next, the Live Before Lock show. They'll bring you up to lock. Hopefully, they can keep you updated on uh, any real movement that we have or news or updates involving that game because it's a big piece of the puzzle on Friday night. Um, Angels in Houston, Gerrit Cole and Andrew Heaney. I'm going to update our awesemo.com projected ownership to see here if we've got an update. Let's see. Right now we still have Gerrit Cole on DraftKings at 25%, Adam, which is right now the second highest, tied with Zach Greinke, among starting pitchers. And then over on FanDuel, we have Gerrit Cole at 20. Oh, is that right? Wow. It went from 16 to 24, which at the moment would project him to have the highest ownership by twice as much as the next closest player. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure I expected that.
Yeah, I mean, I have him projected in my tournament projections as my highest scoring pitcher, but just not by a wide enough margin where I would want him if he's significantly higher owned than guys like DeGrom or Marquez or like anyone else. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a really good play. I think that yeah, he's a good pitcher. He's a good play, but he's also the most expensive pitcher on a slate where there's a or second most expensive pitcher on a slate where there's a ton of really good pitching options. Where I actually think this game gets interesting, at least looking at DraftKings pricing. We talk a lot about how everything comes down to salary and how ceiling does not someone's ceiling is not impacted by who they're facing. Their likelihood of reaching that ceiling is impacted by it.
Right.
So you can find opportunities in tournaments to take really good players in tough matchups at decreased ownership and decreased price tags. That's what we have here with the Angels. Cole Calhoun's $3,000. Mike Trout is $5,000. Shohei Ohtani is $4,400. Calhoun's come back down to earth, but I think 3K is still really, really cheap for him. Mike Trout at 5K is one of the lowest price tags you should ever see. Shohei Ohtani at 4,400. I mean, I know it goes overlooked because he doesn't, play every game, but he's been absolutely phenomenal hitting. And there's just a lot of upside at that price. So all three of these guys, I think, make for pretty interesting contrarian high upside tournament plays against Cole.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty much just not going to have a ton when it comes to this game. Uh, well, here's my reasoning on it, and everything you said makes sense, and it's a great point on ceiling not changing, but the odds of them attaining or reaching that ceiling are lowered or higher based on the matchup. Um, but honestly, when it comes to Gerrit Cole, like let's say now, let's just talk tournaments. Assuming he's going to be the highest owned, and right now, I mean, it looks like by a wide margin on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings where you play two pitchers, he is easily going to be the highest owned, like top shelf pitcher. Um, Looking like 10, 15% higher ownership than DeGrom, way higher than Marquez, 4 times the ownership. I just think his chances of reaching the ceiling, as you put it nicely, are lower here. And I'm willing to take a risk on not playing him with the assumption that he finishes somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 28 fantasy points. And with that being said, Marquez is a phenomenal pitcher, and he's been lights out away from Coors. DeGrom is as good as you get. Uh, Greinke's in a good spot. Castillo is in an excellent spot. I just don't know if I need to go all the way up to Gerrit Cole or even Jacob deGrom tonight. There's so many good options who I believe actually could easily give me 30 plus fantasy points in their respective matchups. So that's where I'm at on Gerrit Cole.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. Like when I run my crunches, if I end up with Gerrit Cole be one of my highest owned pitchers, I'm not going to be upset about it, but I'm not going to like keep changing stuff and redoing it to make sure that I'm overweight on him either.
Right, right. No, and I think that's a pretty reasonable point. Let's say you were hand making 10 lineups. How many Gerrit Cole lineups would you have?
Probably not that many. When I hand make, I tend to force in hitters, but yeah, I mean, I'd probably, I guess, make myself maybe get like 1 or 2 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It'd probably be like one, maybe none. I don't know. Um, but at the same time, there's a good amount of value hitting on this slate, and I keep coming back to it. I don't mean to be redundant, but like if Globe Life doesn't play, that takes a lot of good expensive hitters out of the player pool, and then you aren't left with all that much. So that could have a pretty significant impact here.
Yep.
On the other side, Adam, Houston against the Angels. Um, you have Andrew Heaney on the mound, who's been pretty good this year, but he's allowed 23 home runs to righties. All 23 of his home runs have come to righties, 1.57 home runs per nine. And you have guys like Bregman who crush lefties, and Tyler White and Springer and Gonzalez batting fifth. What do you make of this Houston offense? A lefty who's good, but definitely has some problems when it comes to giving up power to righties.
I like going to these Houston bats because Heaney is good, like you said, but he's allowed almost 1.6 home runs per nine. Even though Houston isn't a great park for hitters, it's better for right-handed power than Los Angeles. And there's just so much good right-handed power in this Houston lineup. Whether it's Bregman, like you said, obviously Springer, Altuve, and White, but even Marwin Gonzalez has power. He's cheap and multi-position eligible. J.D. Davis is another guy who he strikes out a ton. Like, don't play the guy in catch games, obviously, but he's got power too, and he's cheap. He's another way where you can fill in one of these first and third base positions that are relatively weak with a guy that does have home run upside. I think that it's a really good team to mix and match in a lot of one offs from.
Me too. I I you mentioned most of it, but you know, it's tough not to come back to a guy like Tyler White too, because like the bulk of this righty heavy lineup, Tyler White's got a lot of pop. First base is not deep. So, he's just another guy in the mix that makes quite a bit of sense. I I could make an argument for most guys in this lineup. And Tyler White definitely is one of them. Got a 309 ISO against left-handed pitchers this season. Uh, I wish Gaddis was in the lineup. It would give me another place to go at catcher, Adam, at a weak catcher spot. But outside of that, it's a righty heavy team with a lot of power, and I think that's where both of us are at.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now in my player pool, the only two Astros I excluded were Gurriel and Marisnik.
All right, yeah. I don't know if I love Altuve either, but obviously, if you're loading up on this team, you're gonna have plenty of them. It's just
Oh, and to
it's
answer the
kind of
Gerrit
a,
Cole, oh, sorry. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
To answer the Gerrit Cole question, I just did like my first preliminary crunch, and I'm going to change it 100 times, I'm sure. But I ended up with 28% Cole.
28. Wow. Okay. Yeah, so you're going to be like matching the field pretty much on DraftKings.
I would guess that it ends up coming down a little bit, but that's just kind of what my projections gave me before I messed around with too much.
You would guess that your final product comes down, or
Yeah, because
overall ownership on Cole? Okay.
it might stay around the same. I would guess it might come down a little bit because I think I'll probably end up getting more Marquez than I have right now. Um, Probably, I don't know, but maybe less Sabathia and less Greinke. So yeah, maybe it ends up being around 25 to 30 for me.
All right. Sounds good to me. Let's keep it going then. St. Louis and San Francisco here. Um, John Gant and Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner is starting as scheduled. He had that issue with his side, but it seems to not be an issue. He's making his regularly scheduled start. And then you have John Gant against a Giants team that has 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 5 righties in the lineup. He's been very good against righties this year. But kind of outside of that, Adam, you look at John Gant, and I would never say that he's a priority play on such a deep slate, but it's a bad San Francisco team, and Gant has right around the league average K rate, but has done a very good job of limiting damage to lefties and righties this year, and has a 12.6% swinging strike rate against righties. So I don't think Gant's a crazy play whatsoever here as a second pitcher at sub 7K on DraftKings. What are you doing with this game?
I don't think anyone against San Francisco is a crazy play, but one thing I will point out is John Gant, like he has been really good against righties this year, like you said, but that was something that kind of surprised me because we hadn't really seen it when he, came up before. And he's a guy who his best pitch is his changeup. And normally guys like that don't have a ton of success against same-handed hitters. The reason I bring that up, even though he's been so good, is that over the last month, he has the highest expected WOBA on the entire slate allowed to right-handed hitters at
Wow.
405 with a 10% swinging strike percentage. So again, I mean, it's expected WOBA over a month. Take it for what it's worth. But it's just kind of worth, I think, noting because he was outperforming his projections for the most part this season. And it seems like maybe coming back down to earth here. The Giants obviously are really, really bad. So I don't have an issue at, $6,900 Gant at all. It's just something I wanted to point out is, kind of a word of caution, at least for anyone who's like really falling in love with this Giants matchup.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Plus, Ross Stripling is like 7,300. So
Yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of my Gant as soon as Stripling became an option.
yep, as you should have. And I actually like Reid Foley's ceiling here a little bit more. Obviously, that's a risk, as I said. If you didn't catch the beginning of the show, Reid Foley's made some really, really notable improvements recently with higher slider usage, 30% whiffs per swing on his four-seamer, all the stuff I like to see, which is why the strikeouts have risen so dramatically since being recalled. So I like him as a tournament play over Gant. But yeah, Adam, the truth is like you have a lot of guys down here, whether it be Reid Foley, Gant, Chen. You mentioned Liriano, just that he's not in the worst spot. And then, of course, Stripling. But there's no doubt that all of those guys below Stripling will see their ownership decrease rather significantly now that Stripling is getting the start. I would even throw Castillo into the mix, seeing his ownership come down a little bit more. Sabathia as well. Stripling's going to siphon away a lot of that. Even though Hill was expected to be high owned, very high owned as well, he was also $1,500 more expensive than Stripling. So, or more than that, actually. Hill was what?
95.
95. So $2,300 more. That makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you have
You'll see
anything?
ownership come down on the mid-range guys, and you'll see it go up on guys like Cole.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Perfectly put. Do you have anything else here from the St. Louis side or anything on Bumgarner? I'm pretty much just steering clear of both sides of this.
Yeah, nothing that I'm prioritizing. I'm sure I'll end up with some St. Louis one-offs just for the power upside, but nothing that I feel great about.
All right, a few games to go here. Let's go to Chase Field, Arizona and Colorado. Zach Greinke and Herman Marquez, could make very good arguments for both of these guys. I want to start. Let's start with Greinke. Let's get this out of the way first. If you look at his last few performances, they haven't been spectacular at him, but it's also been at Houston, at Colorado, versus Atlanta, and at the Dodgers. So I wouldn't say, he's gone, he's, kind of ran the gauntlet over the past month. And now he faces a Colorado team that is a lot worse outside of Coors. But it's going to be hot in Arizona. I believe the roof is open too. So curious to see where you stand on Greinke, who at home this year has been very, very good, regardless of the conditions.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on what to do with him. Like the matchups obviously have been tough, like you said. Even before the Dodgers game, he faced Seattle. He hasn't had a good matchup really in a little over a month. He faced San Diego at San
Yep.
Diego. The thing that my issue with Greinke is that he's projected to be the third highest owned pitcher on the slate right now, and it's clearly a good matchup against Colorado. He clearly can do really well, but he's 9,700. There's not a ton of upside for him at that price. He's not a guy that has elite stuff like Cole or DeGrom or even Marquez. So if I were to take one of these highly owned pitchers and like choose which one that I want to be underweight on, I think it would be Greinke, just because I think that the stuff isn't quite as good as other guys. There is, at least some concern over the fact he hasn't, had a good start in a month. So I think he's still fine, and I'll have some, but I don't expect to be matching, 20 to 25% ownership on him.
Yeah, my guess is you're probably looking at him and saying, "How often am I going to get 35 DraftKings points from
How
Greinke?"
often is Zach Greinke going to be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate?
Right. Yeah. Or on this slate, how often is he going to be a top 3 scorer?
Right.
It's just so much, and
If he
he's
were if
faced
he were if he were 5 to 10% owned, I'd be like, cool, let me get some Greinke against the Rockies. But
for sure.
it just doesn't seem like a spot where he should be that much higher owned than a lot of these other guys.
Well, speaking of 5 to 10% owned, right now we're seeing Herman Marquez with projected ownership of 6% on DraftKings, 4% on FanDuel. He's not particularly cheap, but relative to his production lately, outside of one surprisingly bad start in San Francisco, he's been an absolute stud. Racking up 11 strikeouts, 13, 9, 5, 7, 10, 9, 8, with a bunch of those games coming at Coors Field. He's been as dominant a pitcher as you could find over the past couple of months. You're talking about somebody who is allowing a 257 WOBA and 130 ISO away from Coors, 0.76 home runs, 27% strikeouts. It's pretty incredible. And this year he has a 34% K rate and 16.7% swinging strike rate against righties. The thing is they're the top of this lineup has a lot of lefties, but then you have 5 righties from the 4 through 9 hole. So it's an interesting spot, but Marquez, this guy has been legitimately dominant, Adam, and it's really that simple. He has been that good that we'd be silly not to look at him and analyze what he can do for us here against the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously really, really talented. There are a couple of things that concern me, and there's no questioning his upside here. And if he's going to be low owned, I do want to be overweight on him, but it's not a spot where I'm just like jamming him into, as many lineups as I possibly can, because there are, 4 lefties in the top 5 of this order. Escobar and Peralta in particular are dangerous. The roof being open really concerns me. I had actually missed that because I just
Yeah,
had gotten used to it.
96 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you remember at the beginning of the year, everyone made fun of the humidor stuff because the ball, still flew in Arizona because the roof was open and it was 95 to 100 degrees. Once they closed the roof, we saw it do what, smart people said it was going to do. But the roof open just helps mitigate that, and it makes it tougher to pitch. So that does scare me with Marquez here, especially when you are talking about an elevated price tag on a deep pitching slate. So I'm going to Marquez. I'll be overweight on him if he's 6 to 10%. I'll have more than that. I'll probably end up around like 15 to 20. But it is a spot that really scares me, and I do think going to guys like Escobar and Peralta are good, high upside contrarian plays.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get past the top of the lineup, Pollock's been really rough lately. Nick Ahmed, Jeff Mathis, then you have the pitcher and Greinke. Daniel Descalso isn't exactly the scariest bat. It is the top of this lineup that concerns me the most. The 2 through 4, Eduardo Escobar, Peralta, and Goldschmidt. I think once you get past there, Marquez should be okay. But roof open 96 degrees is definitely concerning. Um, on the other hand, Marquez has thrived at Coors. Well, you look at his ERA, it would say differently, but just recently he's been very good at Coors. These conditions are different though, right? It's the humidity and the temperature and not as much the altitude, but I think but not humidity, just the temperature. It does come back to one thing though, Adam. Like if you're playing him, it's because we know what he can do, and he could be 5% owned on a 2-pitcher site, which is pretty crazy given how good he's been over the past several months.
Right. If you flip his ownership with Greinke, I'd be saying the same thing. Where like I don't feel good at all
Right.
about the spot, but I'll play more Greinke than the field. But
100%.
it appears Marquez is going to be the lower owned of the two. Like I'll go overweight on him, underweight on Greinke, not have a significant amount of my bankroll on either one, and move on.
Yes, sir. this Arizona team at the same time has I don't know, they just look like pure dog shit lately. To put to put it bluntly. So
Tell
I
Cole
mean,
Hamels
yeah, that's because it wasn't the Diamondbacks.
that.
It was their AAA affiliate. I
The
mean,
Reno Aces just off Cole Hamels.
yeah, exactly. Am I wrong though? Like that lineup, you recognize like three names. Uh, the actual Diamondbacks recently have been pretty garbage, but that's just kind of anecdotal in terms of how Marquez will perform here because Cole Hamels went in and faced literally the triple. What is it? What did you call it? What's their name? The Reno what?
Reno Aces.
Reno Aces. Yeah, he faced the Reno Aces and got lit up. So that's baseball for you. How about Minnesota and Oakland? Jose Berrios and Liam Hendricks opening up yet another bullpen game here. Um, who do we have coming in for him? Is it going to be Mangden?
I'm not sure. It normally is, but I
He
feel like
pitched
he
four
just
innings on Tuesday. Yeah, not sure. I don't even know
um
if it matters.
yeah, I'll say I kind of forgot this game existed. Maybe Chris Bassett. He hasn't pitched since at least Monday.
It could be.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Might
Would be
be.
Chris.
Yeah. Honestly, it doesn't even matter at this rate. Like, I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I,
I don't really care.
yeah.
I have nothing from this game outside of Matt Olson and Jed Lowry and Piscotty all being too cheap for their upside.
Yeah, pretty much. And even in that case, I'm not, super
Nope.
intrigued.
I'm just leaving in my
Um,
player pool, and whatever I end up with, I end up with.
yep. I don't have anyone from this game. Let's go to the last one here. Then we'll hit our positions. We will give you our top stacks. We'll hand it over to Chris and Jake. They'll lead you up to lock. Um, hopefully, we'll get some updates on this Texas and Seattle game because it is an important one. All right. Anyway, San Diego, LA Dodgers. We've got ourselves not Rich Hill, who's been pushed back to tomorrow, but Ross Stripling, uh, who is actually pretty decent. And you're talking about a guy this year, Adam, that has produced solid numbers when given the opportunity to start. Now, here's the thing: he threw 72 pitches last time out, so it shows me that even though Dave Roberts is the manager, which makes things tough, so it's pure speculation. But there's a good chance that Stripling throws like around 90 pitches. There's also a chance that he's like limited to 5 innings, and even if he's at 75 pitches after five, ends up getting pulled. But got a 29%, 29.5% K rate against lefties, 25% against righties. Double-digit swinging strikes against both, and he's very cheap against a really bad Padres team. So, there's no doubt that Stripling will be the highest probably owned pitcher on DraftKings where you're playing two of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's some risk in how deep he'll be able to go into this game, but the price tag just takes all of that away.
Yep,
My best guess is that we see like 80 to 85 pitches from him, which is more than enough at 7,300 in this
that's what
matchup.
I'm assuming as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just been so good this year, and the matchup or the price tag's just incorrect.
You know what though? People were going to pay 9,500 for Rich Hill when there was a good chance that he would clock in at under 90 pitches as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed that he got scratched, and now the Dodgers chalk became really good chalk.
Yep, very good point.
But yeah, I mean, it's just not a spot that I really am looking to fade. Like, I just don't think, especially CC Sabathia is still projected for what, like around 15% ownership.
Yep.
It's not like you're getting 40% Stripling to 2% Sabathia or something like that. And Stripling, I just think's so good that, and there's so many other ways to differentiate on this slate that I'll gladly just play Stripling.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you're getting basically the same value of Rich Hill at a $2,200 discount. And what I mean by same value is it's not like Rich Hill has no leash either. It's not like Rich Hill's going 100 pitches no matter what. Like very good chance Rich Hill finish this game or tomorrow, let's say, with 84 pitches. Like very good possibility. So I really have when you look at Stripling, there's just way, 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 way too much upside here. I think in terms of just point per dollar, I don't see there being a better option on this entire slate, Adam.
Nope, I'm right there with you.
All right, on the other side, Eric Lauer against this Dodgers squad. Maybe I'll have some interest if Globe Life doesn't play in like a Machado or something, but not sure how often I want to go here right now. What about you? Where do you stand with this Dodgers bats against Lauer?
I don't really have much of anything. I think Machado's fine. I think Turner's fine, but neither one's a priority for me in this park against a really, really, really good San Diego bullpen.
All right. California Cool says Stripling is 73 on DraftKings. I can't see him being the highest owned when no one knows if he's on a pitch. I could pretty much guarantee you that he's going to be the highest owned, to be honest
Yeah,
with
I'd
you.
be shocked if he isn't.
If he isn't,
If he is not.
yeah. I he you're talking about somebody that we don't know if he's on a pitch count, but everyone on the Dodgers is on a pitch count with Dave Roberts, and they're always pretty high on. Look, he threw 72 pitches last time. Don't forget about the innings. If he threw 72 pitches in an inning, it wouldn't matter. It's still 72 pitches. And Dave
And then you get the
Roberts,
guy ready for the playoffs.
yeah, exactly. Dave Roberts is trying to get him prepped for the postseason. 72 pitches last time out. Quite frankly, if he throws 80 pitches against San Diego, the worst team in almost every relevant metric against right or bottom five, it's like ownership is always, you often see dictated by the matchup, which is like, how often do you see guys super high on just because it's against San Diego or just because it's against Baltimore?
What did you say?
I said, how often do you see guys that are super high owned just because they're facing the Padres or just because they're facing Baltimore?
Right, exactly. And this is a pitcher that people have been playing all year at higher price tags.
Yeah, I just think at this price point, everyone will jump on. Anyway, let's hit our top positions. There's so much at pitcher. I'm not even going to say give me your top three. Just give me the guys that you like in order of preference because there's so many of them.
Cole, Stripling, Cole, I think are my two highest owned. I like Castillo a lot. I'll have some Marquez. I'll be overweight on Marquez. Probably be a little overweight on Sabathia.
All right. Marquez. Well, start with Stripling. This is where it's so much. Marquez, as you mentioned, you got to have some Marquez. DeGrom. I'm just could bite me, but I don't think I'm going Gerrit Cole. Not a lot at least. Definitely love Luis Castillo here though. And then when you get down to the bottom, other than Stripling, if you're not risk averse and you want to chase the upside, I think Reid Foley has shown enough improvements and adjustments to his pitch mix that he makes for a very interesting play against Tampa. And then, honestly, Adam, there's so many guys down here that you could, that if you saw him at the top of the $10 extra innings on DraftKings tonight, you would be like, okay, I can see it,
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to make pitcher plays that don't make sense on this slate.
Exactly. Someone will do it though. Someone will do it.
Don't play
Catcher. Yeah, right. Or Diego Castillo. Right. Catcher's still pretty weak though. 14 games. There's not a ton here.
Yeah, Sal Perez. Yeah, Sal Perez, and then I don't know the Tigers catchers, like just because they're really cheap.
What about Saul Telemakia for you?
He's a Tigers catcher.
All right. So I was reading our comments. California Cool said, "I'll gladly take my all if Stripling pays off. I just can't do it." That's reasonable enough. My argument was that he's going to be the highest owned pitcher. Right. That's all. But Unk DFS says, yeah, starting to agree Dave Roberts can't be trusted. He could never be trusted, let's be honest. But that's different when Rich Hill's almost 10,000 and Stripling 73. So at least you have some safety here in the price point. Anyway, Sal Perez, we have no Evan Gattis, unfortunately. Chirinos moves a spot up in the order. I don't mind him batting seventh. It's pretty ugly out there. I don't really have much. All right, first base. Adam, I tell you what, first base you would think would be deeper. It's not. Um, I like Tyler White. I think Jay Bruce is a phenomenal value batting fourth. And then I'll throw one more in and let you close out the position. I guess I'll save Neil Walker for second base. Hunter Dozier, I guess, is fine here batting fifth.
Yeah, Jay Bruce, Hunter Dozier.
All right, is that it?
Yeah.
All right. I think you cut out on me because all I heard was Jay Bruce and Hunter Dozier. Did you say someone
I
else?
said and Freddie Freeman.
Oh, okay. Didn't hear that. Got it. And you also mentioned Bora and Santana if you wanted to earlier in the show, right? And I mentioned Freeman too. I think first base could be sneaky good value there. Second base, we both like Neil Walker. Who else you got here?
Yeah, Walker, Merrifield, Ronnie Rodriguez at 2,800.
All right. Based on weather, Cano and Odor are two of my favorite plays if they actually play. So stay tuned for more updates on that. Third base, yeah. You had said earlier in the show it's not that deep, and you're very right. So I like Bregman here quite a bit. Kyle Seager's batting fifth if this game plays. And then I'll throw Eugenio Suarez into the mix as well. Who do you got at third?
Devers, Suarez, Bregman.
All right. How about shortstop?
Mondesi, Estrubal Cabrera, and Manny Machado.
All right. Kind of ugly. Profar if he plays. Didi, Segura, Bregman's available here as well. I think that'll do it for me. Oh, and Trey Turner. Sounds crazy, but the stolen base upside at a much discounted price point is very, very appealing. All right, what do you got at outfield?
Kristen Stewart, Bonifacio, Cole Calhoun, Aaron Hicks, Castellanos, Aaron Judge, Springer.
All right, I'll throw in Chu and Mazzara, Brandon Nimmo and Conforto. They are expensive, but I very much like this spot here. And Ciarte's batting second. You mentioned Kristen Stewart and everybody else that I'm pretty much targeting. George Springer, Nelson Cruz, Mitch Haniger. Let's see what happens there. I mean, that game, if it doesn't play, it'll really suck. But like you said, Adam, if you're willing to take the risk in some lineups, the payoff could be massive if we don't get news until much later in the night. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, top stacks. Let's do it, and we'll head out.
Yankees. Well, as discussed earlier, I'm not full stacking anywhere, but Yankees.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Yankees, Royals, Tigers, Astros. That's it.
All right. Are you not including Texas and Seattle just because it's sketchy?
Oh yeah, because I have that game completely crossed off outside of game stacks.
Right. But just in case, we should probably throw it out there, Texas and Seattle, because those are like the two best outside of the Yankees. Houston, not a ton though, really not that much. So I guess we'll see what happens there, and we'll turn it over to Chris and Jake coming up live before lock show. Going to take you up to 7:05 Eastern time. Good luck tonight. You can hit us up on the Twitter machine at Laffy_D, ship my money DFS, or find us in the Slack chat, the Awesome-O DFS Baseball Slack chat. Yeah, that'll do it for us. Good luck. We will be back, the two of us, on Monday as the baseball season winds down. Stick around for the weekend for football. The game plan with Ben Ross and myself, 11 a.m. Eastern, and tons of football content leading up to lock on Sunday as well. Good luck. We'll see you back here next time on the Deeper Dive, presented by awesomemo.com.